All right, then let's go. Alicia and Reenie here, out for a walk. Reenie is my little best dog friend. She is a scruffy terrier schnauzer mix. This is Sustainable Events Dog Walk, a short podcast from Positive Impact Event Consulting, where you can get a quick nugget about sustainability for your events and event business while on a walk with Alicia and her dog Reenie. Sustainability is a big project, but we'll get there together, one little step at a time. Happy Pride Month! We are going to use this month for what it was designed for and take a minute to review some of the things that we can do in sustainability that affect and improve the lives of our LGBTQ plus neighbors, and review some considerations that you might take when you're looking at Pride for education and then the rest of the year to put all of that education into action. Now, Pride is originally a human rights movement formed to protest against the police brutality against the LGBTQ plus community, and has grown to be a visibility movement for that community and an opportunity for people to educate and talk about it and expose the prevalence of our LGBTQ neighbors and talk about their concerns. So I'm not going to review with you the most basic elements of what LGBTQ plus means, who is involved in this group. I'm sure what you already know is that this is a social and community category issue. This is representing, and I like the European acronym. I think it has less of the political stink that DEI has. So that's IDEA, inclusivity, diversity, equity, and accessibility. And there's lots of ways that your choices as a planner and a vendor will improve the diversity and accessibility and inclusivity of your events. There's also a very big economic component that goes into making these choices. What I think is most important for the discussion of pride, inclusivity, and the general human rights topics is your power as an event professional to make a positive impact in these areas for the greater community. Your clients are business people and nonprofits and families who don't necessarily have this vantage point. They do not professionally see how people gather. And that is the advantage we have. And from my perspective, especially if you're a planner, but in the case of all vendors, it is literally your job to make sure that people see the value in this inclusivity and accessibility, the business case for diversity. These are all things that really do have a big impact. Bring it up with them and make sure that they can understand and are making better choices. So those better choices when it comes to inclusivity might be things like making sure that your staff and MC and program are representative of the true community that's being served, making sure that your programming, marketing materials are using language that does not exclude anyone and is actively including as many people as possible. And the way that you do that is making sure to go through your script with your client and with your partners to make sure that the MC understands the importance of addressing the crowd in an inclusive way. Welcome all of your new and old friends to the room, to welcome all of your past and future donors, to the people who took time out of their lives to come. It doesn't have to be narrowed down to the ladies and the gentlemen and the moms and the dads. Other places that your language really comes into play is in recruitment for jobs, for volunteers, even for your MCs and the people you're going to have on stage, making sure that it's clear that all people who are interested or affected are invited. Having your scripts and your templates not have any automatic gender biases in them. You don't want your script template to say that when we return from the video, the MC should re-engage the audience and then he will start the next segment. I'm not going to go in any more on the diversity case for business and for fundraising because I feel like it doesn't take much imagination to elaborate on what I've already said. Something you might not know about is the accessibility component. Obviously, inclusivity and diversity are really important from a community standpoint, making sure that our neighbors are involved, that we are economically accessing as many people as possible. including anyone who might care about our organization, our cause. The other thing that happens is statistically, there's a huge overlap in people who have accessibility needs and people who have inclusivity needs. When you start to look at one, you start to find members of your community who have been routinely excluded on multiple bases. So when you start to open the door for them, you'll learn really quickly about multiple angles of their exclusion, and that's really important for you to understand and see. Another area that you'll be able to advise, whether you are a vendor or a planner, but a planner is going to have a lot more input in this area, programming. When it comes to programming, you're going to have a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses, internal meetings and special events and happy hours are going to have things like mom's nights, dad's nights, ladies' night, all of these sorts of narrow opportunities where we want people to be able to associate based on a more nuanced version of their identity. But when you start to do those, you have to be more considerate of which identities are being left out of the conversation, and make sure that you have opportunities for other people outside of those identities to get involved, because that is an opportunity to leave exclusion and resentment on the table and never address it and never re-engage that group. The most recent example of this that I have had a conversation about is with a school event, and they were hosting a routine mom's night. And the idea being, within our school, we want to create community, we want to facilitate our parents meeting each other. And the board who put it together, even though there are members of their community who would be represented by it, were not willing to take into consideration how to make sure that the single parents, the dads only and moms only households were able to participate. So it's just things like that that goes, okay, if mom's night excludes the two mom households because they don't want to have to pick who's going to go and they're not going to afford a babysitter so they both can go, the single parent households where they're not going to afford a babysitter, and then when they host a dad's night, all the same problems happen, even if it's simultaneous and it says, if you're a dad left at home with the kids, come on over here instead, we'll do a kids meetup. By phrasing it that way, you have left out the moms who stayed home, instead of taking the opportunity to say, if you are the parent home with kids, you are welcome with us instead for the kids outing, and reframing it as the parent with the child. So it's just a matter of considering. And this is our job. We do logistics. We do the most detailed consideration. So taking it on ourselves to start to ask the questions that have been left aside and take the opportunity to start opening these doors a little bit wider and say, where are we missing a trick here? Where is there an opportunity on the table? Because the thing about DEI choices is that they are strengthening our community by including more of the humans around us. And the last thing I'll say today about Pride is that I have mentioned before, I'm based in Seattle. I was raised on the West Coast. I was exposed to the LGBTQ plus communities very heavily and very nonchalantly throughout my life. It's always been the understanding that they are part of our community. My friends and neighbors belong to the LGBTQ plus community. As I got older, I started identifying as bisexual. I flagged myself to be part of the community. But I know that that is very much a West Coast experience of life. And you may or may not know the percentage of people around you who belong to this community, because visibility is hard to achieve in places where it is less safe. And that is the value of the Pride festivals and the Pride parades, is opening the window and seeing who is there, because the number is a lot bigger than you would think if you have not been exposed to it. So it's very much my privilege to perceive Pride as more of a celebration and less of a protest, and that the local industry here in Seattle has very excellent representation. And the feeling that I get is that people are not afraid to be out and proud, but that might not be the case for you. And that's where I say again, It is our job as planners and as event professionals to be the ones with knowledge and experience and speak up on behalf of visibility, because the reality is these are our neighbors. They are members of our community, whether they are in a position to safely be out or not, whether you have recognized them or not, and that fundamentally our job is to facilitate community. And an inclusive community is a safe and healthy community. So happy Pride, be open, ask questions, prioritize inclusivity and visibility, and I'll see you next week on the precipice of summer for more event sustainability tips, tricks, ideas, philosophy, and recommendations. Have a great week. Thanks for joining me on Sustainable Events Dog Walk. I'm Alicia Druby, founder of Positive Impact Event Consulting, and I want to help you integrate sustainability into your event business so you're ready to make every event you work on more sustainable. See you next time.